Hi, good afternoon. Thank you for joining the second in a series of 3 online webinars entitled The Trail Ahead, Current Trends and Innovations in the Music Industry. I'm Angie Chandler, and I'm Director of the Blue Ridge National Heritage Area, and I want to welcome you this afternoon to our second session, Cutting Through the Noise, Tips and Techniques to Present Meaningful Streaming Events. This is brought to you by the Blue Ridge National Heritage Area in partnership with First Citizens Bank and with support from the North Carolina Arts Council. All the presenters are based in North Carolina, but we also want to welcome everyone from Western North Carolina, all over the state, and we have folks joining us from all over the United States today. So thank you for being part of this series and participating. Before we start, I want to give you a few housekeeping items first. You can see the presenters, but we cannot see you. Everyone other than the panelists are muted at this time. If you have questions, please use the chat function on Zoom and on Facebook Live. We have folks who are monitoring the chat for your questions this afternoon. We are recording this session and we'll be adding the session to the Blue Ridge National Heritage Area website, the partner section of that website, as well as the Blue Ridge Music Trails website. So take a look at that in the next day or so if you feel like you missed anything on the live webinar. For those of you that are on Zoom, we will send you a link to the recording. And if you are joining us from Facebook Live, if you'll please send us your email address in the chat, we can also send you a link as well. For those on Zoom, there will also be a survey at the very end of the webinar. It will pop up as soon as you close out of Zoom. And if you send us an email address through Facebook Live using the chat function, we'll be glad to send you the survey also. We definitely want to get your input on the webinar and make sure we're meeting your needs. The Blue Ridge National Heritage Area is a nonprofit organization whose mission is to preserve, to grow, and sustain the natural and cultural resources in the mountains of foothills of North Carolina. A good number of years ago, we partnered with the North Carolina Arts Council to create the Blue Ridge Music Trails, an initiative to support traditional music in 29 Western North Carolina counties, and also serve the artists, venues, and communities in those counties to strengthen our homegrown music for present and future generations. We're hosting this series because COVID-19 has radically impacted traditional music in our region, and we want to provide you with some tools to positively respond to that impact. We could not have done this alone, so I want to again thank First Citizens Bank, our sponsor, and our partners at the North Carolina Arts Council. I would now like to introduce you to Brandon Johnson, who will serve as the moderator for this session. Brandon?
Hello, everyone. As Angie said, my name is Brandon Johnson. I've been working as program manager with the Blue Ridge National Heritage Area for almost 2 months now. I'm a traditional musician myself, a writer and a student of Appalachian culture and music. And over the past few years, I've worked to become a luthier. I was excited to string up my very first violin on June 18th. So for me, working for the Blue Ridge National Heritage Area with its mission to sustain and promote the cultural heritage of Western North Carolina is a true amalgamation of vocation and avocation. We're very happy to be gathered here with you today as we all face this challenging and unique time in our lives. The Blue Ridge National Heritage Area has worked in partnership with the North Carolina Arts Council to create the Blue Ridge Music Trails website and guidebook, connecting visitors with more than 150 musical venues and sites across Western North Carolina. The Trailhead Workshop series is a continuation of that work as we reassess our approaches and best practices in creating and presenting traditional music. For today's workshop, Going Virtual, Tips and Techniques to Present Meaningful Streaming Events, we've asked some of our partners that have adapted quickly to the current situation to share their lessons and wisdom. Over the next hour and a half, we will hear from 4 different guests and then have a time for questions. We hope that you can glean some insight into producing virtual events that provide meaningful connection between you, your audience, and your artists. We'd like to remind you, if you have questions for our panelists, we'll save those until each panelist has had their time to speak, but you can share those in the Zoom chat or in the Facebook Live chat, and we will do our best to get to those. So starting us off today, we have Sam Gerweck. We'd like to welcome him. Sam is Program Administrator for the North Carolina Arts Council's Come Here, North Carolina campaign. A lifelong musician, he's performed as a solo artist and in various bands since his preteens, and went on to study music theory and vocal performance at the University of Hawaii at Hilo. Since settling in North Carolina, he's put his music knowledge and experience to use, helping highlight the rich musical culture of the state through the Come Here NC campaign. Today, he'll be walking us through the North Carolina Arts Council's content resource guide and provide some tips and tricks on how to convert your practice to a digital platform. So remember, any specific questions, drop them in the chat, and we'll do our best to get to those. So everybody, let's welcome Sam. Thanks for kicking us off.
Hey everyone, thank you, Brandon. To start things off, like Brandon said, I'm going to be walking us through the content resource guide that we at the North Carolina Arts Council made back in March, which feels like a lifetime ago, but it was really only a little over 3 months. The purpose of this guide was to act as a sort of crash course for turning digital in light of the arts world being thrown for a loop by the pandemic that we're still navigating. None of the information that I'm sharing is necessarily gospel, but you can kind of use it as a starting point and a reference point for your practice. And we obviously invite everyone to explore more options, but I think that what we're going to present today is a good baseline and hopefully will be useful to people listening in. The PDF that I'm about to share on my screen will be available to everybody after this is done. You can also find it on the North Carolina Arts Council's website. So to get things started, let me share my screen and make sure that works all right. All right, I think that is going. So what we see here, the COVID-19 Content Resource Guide for Artists. This little introduction pretty much says everything that I've already said, but the 3 points that we're going to cover is producing virtual concerts or lessons that audience can tip or buy a virtual ticket to experience, establishing subscription-based services such as Patreon, and establishing online stores through your own type of website, like Etsy or other platforms. So to start, we'll go with the real basics of video recording 101. Recording video is an art form all on its own that can take years of training to practice and perfect. But this guide will give you some easy ways to make sure your home recorded video is high enough quality to share with your fans. So first things first is composing your video setup. We encourage horizontal video versus vertical. That way it will look good on, say, this platform Zoom. Probably wouldn't look as good if I was like that, right? So we keep our screens horizontal. Something that you might have to do on your end is on your phone settings. If you're using a smartphone, you have to allow landscape orientation. Typically that's on like a drop-down menu from the top, but you can also just search in your phone settings, which you'll also have to do to make sure that you are using the correct quality video, which you'll see on the right side of this screen. Phones shoot all types of file sizes and frame rates, but we suggest going up to the highest quality that you can, 1080p with 30 frames per second. That will just make sure that, as you're pushing this out through different platforms, it'll be the best quality that you can give. Next steps in composition. Now that you have your phone set up in a landscape mode, you have to frame your shots. And right now might not be a great example for this first thing because I'm smack dab in the center, but that tends to be what works best when you're on a Zoom call like this. But say you were setting up to perform, a 3-minute song, you might want to frame yourself a little to the left or a little to the right. It just looks a little bit better composition-wise. The rule of thirds, as it's referred to by the pros. Also, you want to make sure that you're giving yourself enough headroom, but also taking into account the full frame. So give space, but not too much, so that you're not zoomed in to someone's head like you see on the right of this demo. Moving on, lighting is something that I know I personally run into a lot, especially when you're trying to set up in your home. You know, you don't have professional lighting screen, but an easy way to ensure that you're not backlit is just make sure that you are facing a window. You don't have a window behind you. That will make sure that you don't come up like a shadow person, like this example on the bottom left. The person that you see in that picture is our wonderful head of the video team, Tom Normanley, who helped me put together this guide for everyone. Another thing to make sure you note on is zooming. Cameras, especially on smartphones, they have zoom features, but they're not great. So it's best to stage your camera as close as you can to the subject while still allowing for those framing compositions that we noted earlier. Because once you zoom in, you're at risk of getting a blurry picture like you see on the bottom right there. An easy way to do a lot of this stuff is to have some simple equipment that really will improve your chances at getting these shots well. A tripod of some sort is very helpful. You can get manufactured ones for pretty inexpensive, like a little over $30. The PDF will have a link out to a good recommended one. But as you can see, there are ways you can improvise. You can cut a little slit into a plastic cup and rest your camera in it. Also, I know a lot of people have those pop sockets on their phones, and you can pop those out and maybe stage your phone the right way. This will help a lot in making sure that your shots aren't shaky. If you're just leaning your camera up against a book or something, you're at risk of it slipping down. And then the last one is microphones. A lot of phone microphones are actually pretty good, but if you're planning on being mobile during your shoot at all, we do recommend getting a lavalier mic, just so that your phone microphone isn't having to work super hard to pick up your sound from all over a room. If, I don't know, for example, you're making something and you're going to be bouncing around a little bit. So now that you know how to get video shot, we need to decide how to broadcast it and how to maybe generate some income off it. One option, like I mentioned earlier, is a subscription-based reward program like Patreon. Others are setting up a live stream through social media platforms like we're doing this one, and offering the option for tip jars. So we'll go through really quickly how we'll approach that. So this is a lot here. I invite everybody to just go to patreon.com and explore their page. They have a really good layout and kind of walkthrough of how their models work. But essentially, Patreon works like a Netflix subscription, but for a personal account. So say I set up a Patreon account and I set up a tier system for rewards. So someone subscribes for $5 a month, they get a new song each month. But say I have a higher tier, $20 a month, you get that initial perk, but then also maybe a custom recorded video or a 30-minute lesson or something to that effect. And that really requires a little bit of creativity on the creator's part for how you want to reach your audience, coming up with compelling reward systems for their subscription. And it requires somewhat of a consistency and respect for the fact that, this isn't just a one-off thing. If people are paying $5 a month, they're going to expect monthly rewards or however you've set up the reward system. The other option that you can take is live stream events, which I'm sure a lot of you have been participating in or hosting your own. These ones tend to be fueled more through a sort of tip bucket system, like if you were performing at a bar or a restaurant or something that wasn't a full paid gig. And the best way to set those up is either have a Venmo or a PayPal account that you're referencing constantly, having a link to in the description of the live stream video that you've set up. And here are just some really basic tips and tricks for setting up a live stream. We recommend that individual artists keep performances to around 30 minutes. Any longer than this and you start to lose people. Obviously, we're not taking that advice today, but we have so many different panelists that will be able to fill a little over an hour. But when you're just performing on your own, keep it tight. Obviously, people are stuck at home these days, but if you've got a nice 15-20 minute thing, you're probably more likely to have an audience stick around for the whole thing. If possible, have a friend or collaborator lob questions from the audience that might come into the chat. That means that you're not having to watch them. You can have a teammate helping relay those to you, which we're doing here today. And here's a reminder, if you have any specific questions, ask them and we'll get to them at the very end. For longer streams, workshop-related content's great. People love watching other people make or fix things and teach them how to do it. I know a few people on here are going to be talking about lessons, so we'll be able to go into that a little bit more later. Practice good stage etiquette. Remember that when you're live and people are watching you, so you got to keep your performance persona on. And if you can, like we said earlier, just remember to have your camera mounted to a tripod or something stable so that the video is not shaky and people don't feel like they're, in a washing machine or clothes dryer. Streaming applications, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. There's a lot of bullet points on this that I'd invite everybody to go through on their own. Some other routes that we've found practical, obviously right now we're on a Zoom webinar. That works pretty well, though it does require a sort of expensive subscription service. You need to get the service through Zoom to be able to use the webinar feature. So it works well for organizations or people that are, maybe know that they'll be utilizing this for a long time. But Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram all offer free streaming options. And payment, like we talked about a little bit earlier, these serve as sort of the tip jars for the customer to pay the artist directly. You'll want to include your links to your various payment plans on your social media pages, and as you're live streaming, reference them consistently. PayPal, I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with. It's easy to use on the desktop. It's a secure peer-to-peer money sending service, mobile app. A lot of people are comfortable using that one since eBay has been using it for so long. Another option is Venmo, which is a lot like PayPal. It's direct pay, but it's mobile only, which, depending on your audience, might be preferable. I know I end up using PayPal more often, or using Venmo more often than I use PayPal, just because it's on my phone and say I see something as I'm scrolling through my feed, X person is raising money for blank. It's easy to just hop onto the Venmo and send it over to them. A note at the bottom, people also use Cash App. That's not something I'm super familiar with, but I know I have seen it. It's another option to explore. And I think that this last frame might be one of the most important ones. It's the note on collaboration and community. So we are going through uncharted territory. We're all navigating and problem solving on the fly. But one thing we know for sure is that the arts community in North Carolina is strong and will lift up our fellow artists as we're able. Community organizing is important even outside of a global pandemic, and we often see that in the arts. What's a festival if not a community organized event? What are shows that feature multiple performers if not a community event? Use this perspective when employing online strategies. Are you planning to live stream a concert on Friday night? Put a call out to other performers you've worked out. Make the live stream a multiple act event and co-promote it. Your 30-minute live stream could then become a 2-hour event that 5 different acts perform on, all pulling from different audience pools. This can work with other art forms or mediums as well. So again, this will be available to everybody after this webinar is over, and you can also find it on the NC Arts Council website. If you have any specific questions, be sure to ask them in the chat. We'll have our teammates moderating and relaying them to Brandon, and he'll get to as many as he can at the end. And that's about all I have. I appreciate everybody being here, and I'm going to send it back to Brandon. Thanks. Oh, stop share.
Thank you very much, Sam. Now we're going to reach out to Wilkesboro, North Carolina, and spend some time with the Kruger Brothers, Who are originally from Switzerland, brothers Uwe and Jens Kruger began playing North American folk music at an early age and were particularly inspired by recordings of Doc Watson, Flatt Scruggs, Bill Monroe, and other progenitors of country, bluegrass, and folk music.
I'll say a quick hello and then I'll pass it over to you.
Their first public performances were as a duo, busking on the streets of cities throughout Eastern and Western Europe. After gaining a recording contract as well as a radio show on the Swiss public broadcaster, they teamed up with bass player Joel Landsberg, inaugurating a trio that has been playing professionally together since 1995. Landsberg is an American citizen from New York City. The first recording project to include Landsberg was Behind the Barn Volume 2, released in 1997. Kruger Brothers moved to the United States in 2002 and are based in Wilkesboro, North Carolina. The group is highly regarded within the world of acoustic music in North America, in particular by those within the industry. They have also gained the attention of some of the musicians, including Bill Monroe, Doc Watson, Tut Taylor, and Bobby Hicks, that once served as models. Watson said, "The Kruger Brothers are just about as fine a band as I've ever played with. I love to play music with them." That's about the best endorsement you could get in Western North Carolina. So thank you to Joel and the Kruger Brothers. Take it away.
Thank you, Brandon. Hello, everyone. This is Joel. I'll pass it along to Jens and Uwe in just a second. We'd like to welcome you to this webinar and make it clear, you know, we're still very new with this whole live stream situation as well. We very fortunately and very luckily have a wonderful studio location here in Wilkesboro that we were able to convert into a live stream performance venue. And we're still learning as we're going along here how to tweak things and how to make things better. We were very fortunate as well to have some very good local support here in Wilkesboro from our friends at one of the venues downtown, the 1915, which is a wonderful concert venue. And we were able to do the first several live streams weekends that we did from that location until we moved everything over to here. We originally started everything on Facebook Live and have recently migrated to Facebook and YouTube as well. We haven't gotten onto Instagram Live yet. I think that's the next iteration of how we're going to be moving things along. Technically, it's been an experience to learn how to operate multi-camera shoots, working with the video programs, how to, you know, do the streaming, get the technical part of getting the audio linked with the video and everything else. And I'm going to let Uwe discuss a little bit about that because he's a little more tech savvy about it than I am. So I'm going to move it on over to Uwe, who's sitting right here.
Hi, everybody. It was a shock when we came back from our tour of Europe in the beginning of March that we lost all our shows within a 2-week period. And so our normal way of operations just vanished like for everybody else. And we had to isolate, of course, too, because that took a little bit of a delay. And then we realized, well, we have to do something to keep on going. And we came up with the streaming thing. The most important thing, besides all the technical aspects, which we all have to learn, for us, I think, was that we realized when you do a streaming show that it's not about the music as much as it is about building a connection with your audience and maintaining a connection to the people that you already know. The fact that we were street musicians back in 1979, 1980, and 81, I think helped us a big deal in this because the attention span that people have and the way people expect to be entertained is a lot different on Facebook than it is in a concert venue. And so we had to learn that the talking to the audience is just as important as the actual playing for them. We came up with a format where we play for 45 minutes, which is way too long for traditional ways of looking at this. Everybody says keep it keep it below 30 minutes to not lose attention. But we realize that people don't necessarily tune in the moment that you do the live stream. A lot of people actually watch after the fact, and so they take their time out. We create an event, promote the event just like we do a concert, then people tune in, and we get to sit there just as we were in a concert situation, and try to be as naturally ourselves as we can be, which is really tough if there's no audience. And that is the most important thing to keep in mind, that you still have an audience, and it's probably even larger than what you have when you're in a concert venue. We plan these shows. We do one on Friday, one on Saturday. We plan these shows. We start on Monday. Usually we get together and see what are we going to theme it this week, and then we create a logo for it and start promoting the show on Facebook and YouTube, and so that, and we theme every show a little differently. We have made 20 shows now. We performed about 150 different songs. Some of them we haven't played in years, but this has been for us a wonderful thing, in a way that we actually have a purpose to get up on Monday morning and do something and rehearse these songs, get the arrangements a little different, and for me personally, this has been a journey that helped me to stay sane, as sane as I can possibly be under the circumstances. And the technical aspects of this whole thing is we can't afford to hire somebody professional to do all this, so we have to learn, analyze the performances after we've done them. We all go home, we watch them, and we all have our points that we want to discuss. And so during the week, we get together with our sound engineer, we get together with Melissa, who runs our cameras and all that kind of stuff, and we try to optimize. We invested about $2,000 in hardware altogether. That was necessary, we thought, lights especially, some tripods, and we bought a device called the Sling Studio, which enables us to use Apple devices as cameras. It's a very nifty thing, and it's for us probably the cheapest way of doing it, the most economical way. But there's several other machines out there that we could use, and software solutions. But that's the way that we went, because it was we were able to get a loaner, and we saw how efficient this machine works. So we went ahead and bought one. Those are very important things, to have a good sound, because if you have a bad sound, people will turn off. A bad picture is forgiven, but bad sound is not forgiven. And this is why we have a sound engineer who does everything through our mixing board that we use live, and he has it all hooked up, and we try to get a mix that is pleasant over a computer. We see that we get our quality of the picture as optimized as possible for the medium that we stream to. Facebook only accepts 720p, and if you send them something live that is higher, you will run into a very glitchy situation. Now, YouTube is streaming on, you can stream 1080, and so that is a much better quality. Also, sound-wise, is much better. But find out what the limitations of the medium that you stream to are. They're vastly different, and go along with that. There's no use in recording something at 1080 or 4K if the computer only does something that is much lower, because it, as I said, it creates some syncing problems, and you want to avoid those at all costs. Yeah, that's pretty much what Jens once said. This is something that we always have to keep in mind too as a band, is that we found out when people go to a concert, they don't go to see music, they go to see human beings. And the same is true when you stream. The music is not as important as your personality. You have to be careful not to hide it, but to be sociable and come across as as somebody who cares for their audience. And I think that's true live. And just because we sit there in front of a device, that aspect certainly doesn't change. I'm going to pass you over to Jens. I think he's got a lot of things to say.
No. It's just hello, everybody. It's good to be on this. This is fantastic. Well, it's great opportunity to talk to you. What we decided on our two evenings we do on Saturday, on Friday and on Saturday, is that we start our shows on Friday. So we start actually broadcasting at 7 o'clock, but the show starts at 7:15. So we have like a blank, and our sound sort of runs. So people get sort of a behind the scene, behind the curtain idea of it, you know. So we thought, and also it gives us a quarter-hour time to upload some of the videos we've done before for our merchandise. For instance, you know, we talk about our CDs, the jewelry that would get sold through our website, and different things, you know. We talk, you know, T-shirts, whatever we think is interesting. Also, we maybe talk about something personal, and we make a little video of that, you know, during the week, and then we upload that in the quarter hour before or after. We also produced a opening theme song with Melissa, our secretary, put together a little fragment of pictures and things, you know, so you can, little movie, introduction movie. So it becomes a little bit of an event, you know. It's sort of not just sort of, oh, all of a sudden it's there and then, oh, hello everybody. I think a little bit of a professional side of it, and it doesn't need to be complicated. I mean, this could be very, very easily done with one camera by just, you know, showing. But sort of the frame of the show, I think, is really something that we worked hard on, you know, intensely, you know, worked to get it.
Create an event.
To create an event, so people, you know, oh, this is this Kruger Brothers show, and then we also set a date where we really said, okay, it's going to be Friday and Saturday at that time at 7 o'clock. And of course, there's a million other things going on at the time, and a lot of people will not maybe watch it live, but maybe we have 2,000-3,000 people watching it live, but then we have another maybe 4,000 or 5,000 people watching it afterwards, or, you know, or more or less. Doesn't really matter. But I think we once had a weekend where we said, okay, let's just do one show, because we have mostly our own group of fans that watch the shows, you know, like 7, 8, 10,000 people that like to watch our shows. And so they watch the shows again and again. So we thought, well, maybe we get more donations if we just do one show, and one longer one. So we tried that, but that didn't work. It actually cut our income in half. It's like 2 shows is better than 1. For us, we realized that. So maybe you have different experiences with that, but for us, it was definitely that way. And also that people can rely on our shows. It's not like, oh, they're going to do another show maybe in 2 weeks or maybe on Thursday. So for us, it was that they can really rely on Friday night. They can plan on watching the Kruger Brothers, or they know on Saturday, oh, Kruger Brothers had a show yesterday. Let's watch that too. So that helped us a lot to gain more audience on Facebook. And actually, we were able to raise our Facebook audience quite a bit. You know, the likes on our page, you know, our followers increased in the last few months, you know, by thousands and thousands of people. And it's because there's a constant flow of show. And so we keep the show around 6 minutes, 6 songs, 5, 6 songs, 6, 7 songs, not more than that. Sometimes our songs are a little long-winded. But as you can see, we like to also talk, and we like to speak to people, and we tell them. And what we try to avoid in these times, especially, is we don't talk about Corona. We don't talk about the virus. We don't talk about politics. We don't talk about any of that. You know, we try to give people just a relief from all that, because, you know, that's what they get all day long. So we're trying to just stay with the music, tell them about our personal life, and be as personal as we can. And then also we have this moment where we thank them for their donations, tell them where they can give us money, and tell them how important it is for us to stay alive. But we only do that once per show. We're not going to do it between every show. And so we're trying to stay in a good mood, in a happy mood. And I think this is very important for a show, because it's show business, and we are the entertainers, and we are the soul doctors. So, and also there again, we have the same fans, like I said, you know, we have the same 10, 15,000 people that watch us on a regular basis. So if we play the same program all the time, that would get old really quick. So we try to, like Uwe said, we have, you know, we did about 20 shows now, and we did about 150 songs, and we already repeated about 4 songs, you know, of this. But they were not all great songs. You know, you have to understand, this was not all first-class stuff, but sometimes people really enjoy hearing us. Some, you know, they enjoy to hear us play a version of a song that they know, or something that they have never heard from us. And I think that, and and also the mistakes and during the first shows, I'm going to stop here soon, I know I'm getting over, but the mistakes at first, you know, I was like, oh, I played a mistake, oh, that was really bad. But then I realized, well, so what? It's life. It's okay. I'm a human being. We can live with that. It's okay, and we don't have to be perfect. But we want to entertain. I think, and with my brother, you know, doing the technical side, Melissa is helping us with the, you know, she swipes in, you know, live mix of all the different cameras and a good sound, and trying to get the cameras angles right and enough light. And it's very important to have enough light. You know, some good light source to make it look okay, you know, and then give it a frame, I think, and then everything else will fall in place. I think that's about as much as I need to say.
Thank you, Krugers. Thank you very
Brandon.
much. We will.
Thank you, Brandon. Thank you, everyone. And we look forward to answering some questions.
Questions, yeah, exactly.
Yep.
We'll get to the questions here as we move along. We're going to move forward now to Sam Wharton. Sam is a founding member of Songs from the Road Band. He contributes guitar and vocal to that beloved Newgrass group. And make sure to check out their new single, Wrong Train, Right Time. With the pandemic putting a halt to touring, Sam pivoted from touring to starting Bands to Fans, a new online streaming concert series with a conscious focus on safety and sanitary precautions in Asheville, North Carolina. The weekly concerts featuring local and regional bands are live streamed on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch TV. Sam will talk today about his approach to these socially distanced performances, establishing working relationships with the artists and venues, and how they find a balance between following safety precautions while still providing a high quality and compelling musical experience for fans. Thank you for joining us today, Sam.
Thanks for having me, Brandon, and thanks to the entire team over at the Blue Ridge Music Trails for putting this together. It's just a pleasure to be here and talk a little bit about what we're doing in Asheville. I guess I'll just I'll kind of go through the inception of this idea and how it's kind of progressed over the last several months. Like so many people, like you were saying, Brandon, I'm part of a touring band, the Songs from the Road Band, and within a matter of, you know, not very much time, we lost all of our gigs and all of our shows, and suddenly we just found ourselves sitting at home with nothing to do, like most everybody else in the world. And so after about 2 weeks of self-quarantine, I was starting to lose my mind a little bit, and I turned on Facebook, and I saw some friends of mine down in Charlotte hosting a series called the No Contact Concert Series, and another group, good friends of mine, the Acoustic Syndicate, played like a 2-hour concert, and I was able to put it on the big screen TV and plug it into my sound system, and it was really great production and really great sound. And I said to myself, man, somebody should be doing this in Asheville. You know, there are so many musicians here that can't travel, and we have to find some way to keep sharing live music. So after I sat on that for a minute, I said, well, you know, I'm not doing anything, so I'll do it. And as soon as I decided to do it, it was kind of full steam ahead. I started calling venues, all the venues in town that I could think of, and finally landed a partnership with Ambrose West, Greg and Donna Fox. They were equally excited and kind of driven to help produce some live music that we could put out. You know, some of the things that were really important to me while I was looking for this was, first of all, to help the musicians and the music community to have an outlet to share their art and also earn some money during this time when we've all kind of lost our jobs, so to speak. And also just, you know, there's so many fans of music out there. Just about anybody in music is a really important part of life. So I wanted to be able to, you know, to continue to find a way to share live music and live performance with people who wanted it. And, you know, to kind of echo some of the things the Krugers brought up, it's you know, I think music and music performance is really a great way to kind of take a deep breath. We have a lot of heavy stuff going on in the world around us, and it's good and important for everyone to just be able to sit down and take a breath sometimes and not have to think about politics and not have to think about pandemics or, you know, whatever it is that's going on that's causing a burden. And there's quite a bit of it going around. So, you know, I wanted to be able to share that, and I wanted it to be as close to a live concert as possible. So those were kind of things, and also like the partnership with the venue. I needed to find a place that was, because I have a pretty long list of safety guidelines and cleaning guidelines, and part of that was to have the building empty and untouched in between the cleanings and the performances, so that I could offer a space that was safe for the musicians and safe for the crew. And Ambrose West, they had been the building was sitting empty for 6 weeks before we started working in there, and it's not used for anything else. So it just really offered the perfect place for us to set up and produce these concerts. You know, partnered with all the safety concerns, I was also looking for a professional way to produce this music, including professional sound, you know, really good quality, high quality sound. Like the Krugers were saying earlier, it's you know, the video quality can be forgiven a little bit, but the sound quality, I feel like, is crucial for people to be able to tune in and really hear a great sounding performance. And I also wanted a real stage for musicians to come and perform in, because it kind of you know, helps to create the atmosphere of a live concert. And even though it's something you're watching on your phone or your computer, or your TV, or whatever the case may be, you're not there in person, but it's as close to a concert as I could imagine, you know, without actually being there. So and then safe access to the space again was really important, and we were able to accomplish all those things. so was really grateful, and all of a sudden I moved from being a touring musician performer to putting on the production hat, which is entirely new to me. The band, we had been investing in some equipment over the last couple of years, video equipment, to produce live videos of some of the shows we were doing to help kind of spread our reach in that way. And so we already had some equipment, and you know, having the ability to go through the venue's sound equipment really, you know, sealed the deal for us. I work with the crew of 2 other people, and it's Charles Humphrey, the bass player from the Songs from the Road band. He works all of the camera operations, and then Wilson Bowles is our production engineer, and he's teamed up with us to run all the sound. And then I do the lighting during the shows, and I also manage the chat rooms. We stream live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch TV. And I started stream. I didn't even know what Twitch TV was until I just found out that I can stream to it. And the first couple productions we did, I was having some difficulty with YouTube, but I wanted to be able to put something out that you didn't have to be married to Facebook to watch. And also YouTube. I knew YouTube, you could get an app for your smart TV, but also you can get Twitch TV on your smart TVs too. So that was just another outlet that people could actually, you know, put that on their TV and plug it into their sound system and have a real good experience doing that. So it didn't take long to figure out the YouTube thing. I think after the second week, we were streaming to YouTube as well. But we stream, we're using a camera system called Mevo cameras. And they're just these little tiny HD webcams that all connect to like a switch, you know, pretty similar, I guess, to any production with multi-cameras. You got a camera operations center that switches between views, and we run, after the sound gets mixed in the house mixer, we run it through a digital interface, a Scarlett 2-channel interface, stereo sound goes into the video, and then we stream that product live. So our model is really, you know, we're a venue, and we treat it like a venue, and I treat my job like a promoter would. That's what we're doing basically. So I just, you know, I started reaching out to book the shows. We have 1 concert a week in order to maintain all the cleaning standards and safety standards that we have. So we host 1 concert a week. We set up the area. I take, you know, as much as it was important to have all the things that I spoke about, it's also really important to me to make the performers comfortable as possible from a health standpoint or from any other standpoint. You know, we just like if they were going to do a show at a listening room, we provide them with dinner and drinks and nice place to relax, and just try to set up as comfortable a space as possible for them, so that when they hit the stage and perform their show, they can really, you know, cut loose and put on a great show. And we've had I think we've had 9 concerts so far, and they've all been just top of the line music quality, and the performances have been great. So let's see, I've got a little cheat sheet over here. As far as the safety guidelines go, we I did a lot of research on the CDC website as far as what cleaning agents will, kill viruses or bacteria and things of that nature, and how long how long it takes. So like for one show, for example, we have shows we stream typically every Friday. So the way my week works, on Sunday, I create a promotional graphic and a Facebook event, and post that. And then on Monday, I usually, with the team, I have the help of Krista Tortora also helping me with a lot of the promotional material and marketing. But we create a promotional video for the band for the week that's about 1 minute long, so we can post it on Instagram and Facebook. And then on Tuesdays, I go to the venue and I clean the entire space, every surface that you can touch, all the pieces of gear. Everything gets cleaned, and then I set the stage for the performance on Friday. And then after the cleaning's done, aside from myself personally popping in here and there to set up the technical side of it, the rest of the space doesn't get touched for 3 days until the band gets there. And then I show up about 3 or 4 hours in advance and clean everything again on stage, and then wipe all the surfaces and doors and stuff down. So that's just a kind of real quick overview of the measures I take. It's very in depth. I'm a little bit, it may be overboard in some people's eyes. I don't mind being overboard as far as cleanliness goes. I take it pretty seriously. And that's also, we limited the number of shows a week we do for the sake of making every stride that we can to make sure that everybody stays safe. There were some questions to me about the change in my social media use. I was a pretty active consumer of social media, and I did a little bit of self-promotion. Obviously, the band did a fair amount of promotion on social media prior to COVID-19 happening. But myself personally, I was just mostly a consumer. But as soon as I started this venture, I've turned into social media has become a huge business tool. And it's a great tool for information. There's tons of information on Facebook as far as who's your audience and where's your audience coming from, and I've kind of learned how to read some of those analytics to try and better reach the audience that I'm looking for from week to week, so that we can hopefully get as many people watching the shows as possible. I use Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter primarily for advertising promotions. About 85 to 90% of the views of our concerts come from Facebook, so I focus pretty heavily on Facebook, but I do use Instagram and Twitter to kind of keep announcements up. And then I also use Facebook for event management. I create all the events on there, and I do any kind of announcements or updates through Facebook primarily.
Thank you so much, Sam.
Yep. Yeah, my pleasure.
We so happy everybody's here with us today. And now we're going to look to Beth Fields. She is the executive director at the Hospitality and Event Management, including with the St. Petersburg, Florida Pier, Tampa Bay Lightning hockey team, and 10 years with the Stecoah Valley Cultural Arts Center, where she's the grant writer, financial manager, operations manager, and cleans an occasional toilet. The pandemic's put a halt to their live summer concert series, but with some adjustments, they're working to continue to bring music and art into people's lives virtually. Beth will be sharing with us their approach to producing virtual programming, their strategies for managing safety guidelines, and their plans to continue using virtual outlets moving forward. And I'd also like to remind everyone, if you have questions, please put those in the Zoom chat or the Facebook chat, and we'll address those here after we hear from Beth. So take it away, Beth.
Well, thank you. Hey, everybody from far western North Carolina. I'm coming to you from the Stecoah Valley Cultural Arts Center. And we're a very small venue in a restored 1926 rock schoolhouse. We have a very intimate 325-seat auditorium. And our longest running program is the Appalachian Evening Summer Concert Series that goes typically from the end of June till the end of August. And the Kruger Brothers, Joel, have been here the last 20 years for that series. So I want to echo everything that they said about playing high quality music and also the audience, because part of, you know, an audience and a band, they feed off of each other, and especially in an intimate setting like what we have. So we were kind of like, well, if we can't have people in our auditorium, how can we not cancel something we've been doing for 20 years and highly successful? So we closed on March 15th, and all of our employees were laid off, including me. And we finally, you know, navigated the unemployment. Our board looked at the PPP. We knew if we wanted to try to live stream something or have anything here at all, that we would have to have the funding for that, because we were planning to go on sale with our tickets, our individual tickets, when right around the same time we closed. So at any rate, we decided we wanted to just persevere and have our season and figure out who would benefit. And so first I started contacting the 10 groups that we and their agents that we had booked already for the season, and just talking with them about how they would feel safety-wise of coming to our venue, similar to what Sam was explaining. And it would just be the band and our technical person and myself as the MC, and try to make it feel just as normal as possible for the band and for us, because you know, opening night is exciting, and, you know, everybody's coming in for, you know, from their second home somewhere for the summer in the mountains. And just how can we recreate that? We have another MC that likes to tell jokes on me, and I think what the Krugers were saying about, you know, your personality coming through on whatever you live stream. So we haven't done our first concert yet. We ended up applying for the National Endowment for the Arts CARES Act grant, and we did receive $50,000. We were notified on June 30th. So now we're trying to work on our marketing plan so that we can market a series. And so we didn't cancel any of our performances for this season. What we did is just postpone the ones that, you know, started in June and that are upcoming until the end of our season in September and October. And we also guaranteed our musicians that we had booked for this year that they will have a place on our schedule around the same time next year, because the musicians are, in our opinion, I mean, we're a facility, and when we're closed, we have, smaller overhead. Of course, payroll is a big overhead, but we have kind of taken care of that. But our board just felt like we have to help these musicians and not everything cancel. And we worked with the musicians. Some have agreed to come at a reduced rate, 20 to 30%. And we appreciate that so much, because we are going to have to pay for this out of some of our operating support. So we are just working on that marketing plan now, and our other funding being put in place. And as soon as we're able to start publicizing, we did order our equipment. The NEA grant did provide a small amount of equipment to supplement the video equipment that we already had. I'm not a technical person, but we have someone that's bought that equipment, and it's here. And we did our first sync to YouTube yesterday, and so that came up fine. And then we're kind of thinking that since our revenue as the venue, our revenue stopped, we had no ticket sales, and it's different to expect, sell tickets for $30 a person to come inside a venue and have an authentic experience versus being online. So we kind of thought, if we can pay the bands what we had contracted or what we had agreed to for the ones that agreed to do it for a little bit less, that we would use that opportunity to let the bands sell their, promote their merchandise or their website, or but that the donations, or the tip jar, if you will, would be something that would go to the venue, to Stecoah Valley Center, so that we can keep, going as well. Since it's hard to know how long we will not be able to have, in-person audience, we do have to plan for the fall and the winter. We have a large fundraiser in a Harvest Festival, which is an outdoor festival with an indoor evening concert in October, and we'll be making a decision about that later on this month, but it's not looking likely that will happen. So that usually carries us into the winter time, along with our Junior Appalachian Musicians program, and we also have an after-school program. So that kind of all has been, is up in the air and unknown at this time. But we really did just want to persevere, and we felt like we could do that in a safe way. We did ask the artists if they felt safe to come. We do have someone that cleans and sanitizes. The only element of our operation that we have been able to open is our Artisan Gallery. And again, the artisans that make craft are suffering as well because things have been closed. And we opened on June 19th, just a Friday and Saturday. That's when we have the most tourists here. And we've had sales, and everyone, has been adhering to the guidelines set forth by the venue and by our governor. So that has been good. One of the things that we figured out early on, in addition to communicating with our bands that we had booked for the season, was to communicate with our season ticket holders and our donors, because, of course, our demographic is 60 and older, lots of disposable income. Most of them have second homes. And so we made phone calls, and some of those season ticket holders have been here 20 years, as long as we've been doing the program. And what we heard is that they didn't feel safe to come, even if we were able to reopen. So we, again, really came back to this, persevering through this, and at least be able to offer something as close to normal as what we typically have in the venue. The other thing that we have done is try to brainstorm about some other things. I mentioned we're in a 1926 rock schoolhouse. It's about 14,000 square feet. And then we have an adjacent gymnasium building that's 10,000 square feet. And we sit on a 10-acre campus with a nature trail, the courtyard of the Cherokee Arts and Culture exhibit, which is an outdoor exhibit. So that's one thing we could encourage people to still come to. And then also we have a wind meditation garden on the campus. So we've kind of just been pushing our outdoor recreation for people to come and be at the center even when we were closed. And then we're also looking at some space rental opportunities. It's interesting that with social distancing, I never thought that we would consider having Superior Court in our venue, but we are having a visit from a judge next week to approve the security layout of our facility to possibly have a trial in August. So, you know, space rental opportunities may be out there for things that you don't think of, but the courthouse in our county is very small, and the jury room cannot safely social distance. So we're looking at some of that. Also, if we're not able to have our after-school theater and jam program, we do want to do some remote jam instruction. So we've been in touch with our music instructors about that and trying to figure out a way utilizing our classrooms to have students here in groups of 2 or 3, social distance with the instructor online. And then also if school opens or when school opens, that we might also, since we once served as a school, be able to maybe do, and since we have the after school, maybe be able to help the school system with having some remote classrooms for learning here, or use our Wi-Fi for students that can't go to school, where there would be a space and a place for the parents to bring them in small groups. So that's been kind of interesting to just reimagine what your venue can do that it used to do but can't do right now. Let's see. I think that's about all. The other thing that we did starting the first week after the shutdown on the 15th of March is we have been doing a weekly food distribution through our local food bank. And so we asked folks, you know, we had folks calling, you know, how can we help? What's going on? And then of course, when we were in touch with our donors and our season tickets, they wanted to know how they could help. And so we have been able, through donations, operate a weekly food bank. And we usually serve about 45 households with over 130 people each week. And that's done out of our gymnasium building. And the people just drive up and we put it in their cars. So, and one of the things that I was asked to talk about, the NC Arts or Arts NC dashboard, that is a very good place to get information about reopening venues. We're kind of the same way that Sam is, you know, we take turns being here in the facilities, and then on the weekends that the gallery is open, the same person works the Friday and Saturday, and it's cleaned before and after. And then we have a restroom for the employees to use, and then public restrooms, because that was one of our things. We weren't sure, we didn't want to open and not have a restroom available to the public. So we have that separated out as well, and it is a pretty large building. And then the other thing was the question about how can a small nonprofit maintain attendance and engage younger audiences for traditional music presentations. I think since we have not started our live streaming, and our demographic is typically older, I think we are going to look to some of our junior Appalachian musician students to do some live streaming as well. Maybe not as part of the traditional Appalachian Evening Concert Series, But I think that would help us attract a younger and more diverse audience. And then also that's what we're working on as far as our marketing plan as to what key audience we're trying to reach. And so we will be doing that through social media and print, as we still have some of the demographic that reads magazines and newspapers. And I don't know how we can maintain attendance. You know, we have been having weekly executive board conference calls, and you know, it will be a long time before we are back to the level of revenue and programming and activities that we had this time last year. So we have just tried to still, as I've said before, persevere and do what we normally do. And we're hoping to add some craft classes that are online and just open up as it is safe for the public. And every decision that we make is through a public health lens, and the economic lens will support that when the public feels safe to come back.
Thank you very much, Beth. All right, so we have some questions from our attendees today, and I'll start off with one. The first question is to the Kruger Brothers in terms of anything that you film, and I know you talked about filming some live and some ahead of time. Do you film a session more than once if you don't like the first version?
We do live, which means what's on there is on there. It's the immediacy of that live performance that is the important part, not the perfection of the music, just like I said before. We have done a couple of productions for Swiss TV and some other things where we pondered that, and we had a couple of starts that we did again, you know, where we realized that something is wrong, and then it was a technical thing, but the performances basically are live, and we don't mess with them.
Yes. What we do, however, I want to point out is that we a lot of times we record shows, you know, that we stream live later. You know, that we don't have to have spent, let's say, 2 days in the studio. We have recorded, you know, let's say on Friday, both shows. We record the Saturday show between, you know, 5 and 6, and then just record it onto the sling and save it. And then on 7 o'clock, we're going to go live and do the live show. And then on Saturday, Uwe sometimes just comes down into the studio, you know, and just broadcast it, you know, just puts it on, put the shows on. What's so important for us, and Uwe wanted to mention, was
we also had a question about while I'm on, we had a question about the Laura asked the community chat and how it is important for us, for folks during the show. Well, we looked at this, and the answering during the show of comments and all those kind of things are very distracting, we think. But what we do is that as soon as the stream is over, we interact with our audience as if we had a virtual CD table, you know, because this is where people are really after the show. People want to express their feelings towards it. It's like in a concert venue. They don't talk to you while you are performing. But we make sure that after the show, we all go home and we sit down, we read the comments, and we comment on the comments, and therefore we create what is actually needed the most in these times, is what we call community. Yeah. People don't miss music, they don't miss all those things. They miss community, they miss being with other people, and by directly communicating with them afterwards, or even before the show, we create this community. Then we have realized that then people actually talk with them themselves. You know, that our friends are communicating amongst themselves. They greet each other, and this creates a really worldwide community. And we encourage that very strongly during the show as well. You know, tell people to tell us where
they're calling from, where they're watching,
all those things. And that is such an important part of this all, to create that community, because that community is already there for most acts, I think, and to keep that alive is essential, so that we have, if we ever get back on the road and we get live again, that these people have not forgotten us. It is so easy to forget an act or a band or a group when you don't nourish it all the time. And this is the main aim of our show, is actually not, well, the donations are very important, but to keep that community alive that we have built over the last 20 years here in America, and even over in Europe or in Australia. People are part of this. They stay up in Europe till 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock at night just to be part of that community. They get up a little earlier in Australia to be there with us, and they comment, and they're just so proud that they can join this, and so happy. So this is an important part for us, a very, very important part. Also,
they encourage each other. They encourage each other to go actually use the tip jar.
yeah.
You know, so we have these diehard fans, you know, that say, okay, use the tip jar, you know, and then clap, 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 and they talk to each other and say, and they greet each other. It's not like how it is, it's like a chat, and it's really great. So this is important. Shut up now.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Brandon.
We have a question for Sam Wharton. Can you talk a little bit about how Twitch works? I think that's definitely one of maybe the least familiar platforms. So we appreciate some insight there.
Yeah, let me get back on here. There I am. I'm really not really familiar with Twitch TV. It's primarily used for people who stream video games. But I use a service called Restream. It's a web host that I can stream to multiple locations at the same time. And Twitch was an option. And like I said, it was kind of born out of necessity. I wanted to have something that you could put on your TV easily, whereas Facebook wasn't really that thing at that time. So I don't know a whole lot about how Twitch operates, quite honestly. I send a video there every week. I don't get a whole lot of views from Twitch TV, but.
Okay, thank
I
you.
think to add to that, we, the Arts Council used Twitch as a platform earlier on during this. In April, we did a live stream fundraising event. And I think it, like most things, it just relies on you having an existing audience there. But I think to reemphasize what Sam said, it is great because you can get it on your TV, and it also doesn't require a login of any type. You can just get onto it, versus if someone doesn't have a Facebook and you're streaming to Facebook Live, people can't get on to Facebook without having an account. So that's the benefit of that.
Thank you, Sams. And this question's to all of our panelists, asking if you could address the concerns or issues with the internet service used for live streaming.
That is a, if I can answer that, can you hear me, Brandon?
Yes, sir.
Oh, I'm sorry. The streaming, we tried both ways. We tried to go wireless, you know, over our phone and all this, but what we have is a broadband, a fiber optics connection that we use with an Ethernet connection, and we found that to be the most reliable, and that's why we moved to another place here in Wilkesboro for the first shows, while we waited to get that connection into our studio, and it has turned out to be a really an essential part of it. The internet connection is our lifeline, is our connection to the world, and the quality of that connection is essential to this whole thing. There's nothing worse than a stream that stutters and a stream that falls out. If you want to stream from your phone, that's perfectly okay, but you have to plan ahead of time, and then you have to be very careful about the time, because every tower that you have out there, every wireless tower is like if you can imagine every faucet that you open on the water line, and at certain times, like after 3 o'clock when the school's out, the width of a wireless connection is much smaller, because there's many more people online than you have like at 10 o'clock at night when there's not many people online anymore. So that is a problem that you have, is when you use a wireless service. You have to be really careful at what time you do this. If you have a lot of traffic, you're going to have a bad quality. If you have a wired connection, that is the way to go. I would really stress that point.
Thank you. Anybody else on that one?
I would agree with that, just saying that we use, I mean, it's the mountains and sometimes you have it and sometimes you don't, and the weather can be a factor. So we use a hardwired DSL Ethernet system as well.
All right, so let's see here. Next question. Thank you all. I was wondering if anyone has any experience or tips for a virtual film screening with a live question and answer. Particularly curious about the technical aspects and what platforms work best for video presentation.
I can speak to that maybe a little bit. I don't have a exact answer for that, but just anecdotal. I do know that this platform called Discord now offers sort of like a screen sharing, like watch party element to it. Facebook Live also has watch party as a capability, which I don't know if that can quite translate to screening a movie. I know there might be some licensing issues there, and I know Facebook likes to kind of throw a they have a quick trigger finger when it comes to copyright issues. So I know that's not a super in-depth answer, but I would look into the Discord route and also maybe see if you could do any sort of like hosted Zoom webinar where you share a screen. I think the important factor is the ability to share a screen from, you know, the native output. And we could look into that further and get back to you too. I see the question in the comments.
Again, I think the question for the platform is that this is why we went with the Sling Studio system, because it enables us to get all these things on the technical side going. You know, you can have all these things. You can share your screens at no problem, and you can look at the comment sections, and then it really depends on what service you use to broadcast the. You know, you mentioned the copyright thing. I think as soon as you get on YouTube, you have to make sure that you don't play copyrighted material and don't monetize. I mean, you can do copyrighted material as long as you don't monetize on it. The monetization is the crux. That as soon as you start charging money from your streaming service, from the people that are actually in there, as soon as you put that kind of stuff in, they will become very vocal in enforcing copyrights. As long as you don't ask for money directly, you're going to be much better off, and you're not going to be flagged as quickly. We got flagged twice now, and it was both of the times were for stuff that we wrote. It was just kind of
original material of our own.
Yeah, exactly. But like for the platforms, there are platforms out there that let you do this no problem. You have to do a little bit of market research. It depends on your budget that you have. There are software solutions where you can do this with no problem, and like Sam said, you can do this no problem with Facebook watch parties, and you can do the same thing on YouTube. And I think Instagram does the same thing, so that should be no problem from that point. Thank you.
Thank you. So we got a question from Zoe for the Kruger Brothers. Now that you're creating so much of your own live content, what's the most useful role that arts organizations and venues can play in supporting you?
Stay alive, first of all. I think that is the most important thing, because we need places to go to when we come back. To give us access to your mailing list so that we can promote the shows. We'd be more than glad to mention you in our programs and do things like that. So it's a back and forth. But if you can include us in your advertisement, that would be the most helpful, because you have all these mailing lists of your audience that we don't have access to. And those are things that are absolutely valuable for all the artists out there. If you're willing to share those, that would help us great big deal. Then we can just target them directly without being annoying.
And of course, also for a venue, it's important for us musicians. Like Upstate, right? Does that? The Appalachian has a concert series where they have asked artists to do a stream for them, and they sort of provide their audience and their mailing list with a content with a concert that they can then donate to, and I think that's an important way of a good way of staying connected to the audience of an arts council that is not doing this right
We're
now.
doing the same with the festival.
We're doing the same with festivals like Goderich and other festivals, and I think that's a very good way of getting bands to perform a show an hour and then providing it on their platform for their audience.
Carolina in the fall.
Carolina in the fall, for instance, and
We will.
we will do that. But I'm just saying that's venues can really do that, because they don't even have to open up their venue to provide that on their social media platform.
Thank you, guys. We'd also like, I'm sorry, did I cut you off there, Joel?
Yep.
Okay. All right. We'd like to emphasize the Blue Ridge Music Trails Facebook works to promote things that we hear. So if you have things you would like to share with us, you can always check us out as a resource there or share anything with us. And we've had one final question here that's open to everyone. Beth spent a little bit of time talking about it, but it's one of the big questions in traditional music and arts. Can any of you address boosting audience of a younger demographic?
Jens has something.
Well, I think it's a younger demographic is mainly how do you say, lured by younger artists. I mean, they speak the language and they speak they're sort of. If you want to talk to 20-year-olds, you need 30-year-olds, and if you want to talk to 15-year-olds, you need 20-year-olds. And the artists are usually a little bit older than the audience, and at one point it turns around. Artists become 40 and 45, and then the audience turns 55, 65, right? And then at one point, if you become an artist, that's really, I'm just generalizing very roughly here, but once an artist becomes an icon, like Doc Watson was when he was 70, or 80. Then all of a sudden there's all these young people that find him extremely hip, because he's beyond their parents. It's like Del McCurry, But I think it's great. There's so many young bands, that will come and play and do a good show. I think that attracts also younger audiences. I think definitely. Yeah, that's just how it is. I think for most part, it's sometimes weird. If we as older people would try to act like we're young. That's a little weird. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
Any others ideas here?
I would say that's true as well. And one thing we talked about doing is having some of our student instructors for the Junior Appalachian Musicians Program to maybe do like a pre or post show or even their own live stream, because when younger people talk amongst younger people, or, hey, I'm going to be on, this stream on this date and time, then that builds, their friends and people that they know. And then a couple of our student instructors also travel around and have played at other venues. And so I think that's one way. And then again, our target, I'm not very technical, but some of these things that Sam were talking about as far as the different TV and the different platforms and the we have an Instagram, but we don't do anything on there very much because our demographic pretty much looks at Facebook. But we do have Twitter, we have Google Plus. I mean, we have memes and have had those memes for quite a while. So I think just getting our local community to start building that audience. And I say local, I mean our county and the surrounding counties, where we can reach, folks on social media for, pretty inexpensively. And then also, just because of our demographic and where we live, do some local advertising.
Hey, Brandon, this is Angie, and I'd like to make a comment about that too, in that a couple of years ago, the Blue Ridge National Heritage Area and the Arts Council, North Carolina Arts Council, partnered on doing a series of jam concerts across Western North Carolina. One of those was at the Stecoah School, and I think it was great. I think another way for us to ensure that younger audiences are participating is giving them an opportunity to connect with programs like JAM and giving them those opportunities to perform, because it not only builds their confidence, but anyone who is in the audience, it will attract other families and friends from their school. It's also a great way to encourage even younger kids to see an older teenager on stage, and then maybe want to do that in the future for themselves. So I think, and I think we do have in Western North Carolina a really great tradition of teaching younger folks, but we've just got to keep it up and multiply it.
And I'll iterate for folks who might not know what a JAM program is. It's the Junior Appalachian Musicians. It's a program that teaches young children up into middle school and high school traditional music.
Mm-hmm.
But that brings us to our time window. I want to thank First Citizens Bank for being a sponsor here and helping us do this today. I also want to thank North Carolina Arts Council for their partnership in putting this on. Definitely like to thank the panelists, each of you. Thank you so much for sharing your experience and being a great partner with us. We've shared with you the North Carolina Arts Council Guide to Presenting Digital Programming, as well as the Guide to Reopening the Arts. Those are both in the chat, so feel free to take advantage of those. Also, if you're on Facebook, we'll have a survey link dropped in the window. If you're on Zoom, when your window closes, you'll have a survey link pop up. We'd appreciate a few minutes of your time there. And don't forget, the next week, July 15th, we'll have another workshop. Necessity is the mother of invention, adopting new ways to connect. So check our Facebook page and website for information on that. And we thank you, everybody, for being here today. Y'all have a great afternoon.
Thank you, Brent. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.